from early childhood intervention and all the way through the students that we see coming through our doors at Hartford, at UConn Hartford. I'm thinking about the full important kind of critical interventions that you all are going to be talking about tonight. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking about my work after college and before grad school. I worked in immigrant and Native American communities using the pedagogy of Paulo Freire, a kind of literary scholar and educator who wrote a book called Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And his work was about going into communities in his native Brazil, understanding that during a dictatorship, and this is going to sound a little too familiar for us, during an authoritarian dictatorship, literacy was critical for voting. You need to be literate to be able to vote. So Freire understood that teaching people to read, right, was about political power, was about freedom from oppression. And so what he did, he went into communities and would ask people what kind of language, what kind of words they wanted to learn about themselves and about their communities, about their families, and use that as a ground, as a foundation for them to learn about themselves, to learn about their communities, and ultimately gain the power to be able to vote. Freire got expelled from Brazil, goes on to Cuba and other places. But it was that kind of grounding for me working in, again, Native American and immigrant communities that kind of brought me to the space of the importance of literacy as freedom, as justice. I think when I think about the work that we do at Hartford and other places, I go back to the teachings of Bell Hooks, who talks about education is the practice of freedom. Right? Education is the practice of freedom. The kind of work that the NAACP is doing, that we learned about in this documentary, and that is so critical that here at the nexus of the Hartford Public Library and UConn Hartford. One other quick story. So last month, the Stowe Prize, the Harry Peter Stowe Center here in Hartford has a prize every year for literary activism. Literary. This year, Percival Everett wrote this amazing book called James, the reimagining of Huck Finn's work from the perspective of the enslaved James. And so Everett comes to Hartford to talk about the book, and one thing he said in mind, he said, reading today, in particular, reading is a radical act. Picking up a book and reading and literacy is something that is an act of placing yourself in an act of liberation and freedom. So I thought that was very critical, especially in a time when books are being banned, truth itself is being challenged. And again, so that this program, to the right to read, reminds us how critical literacy is for all of these pieces, for social justice, for anti-racism, and these practices that we so espouse here in Hartford. One last thing, I'll just kind of bring it all together, and as I mentioned, Tarka is, along with my colleague David Emmerich, a co-director of emerging UConn Hartford and UConn CoLab in partnership with the library at the University of Connecticut. It's an opportunity to bring folks together like this from the community, from the university and the library, to wrestle with difficult challenges and think about solutions to problems and systemic structural problems like literacy in our communities. So thank you again for coming. It's going to be a great night, and it's my pleasure to end and then also to introduce Corey Betts, the adult branch president of the Greater Hartford NAACP.
Good evening. Liven up now. This is something big. Definitely have to liven up. It's not that simple. It is that simple. My name is Corey Betts. I am president of the Greater Hartford branch of NAACP. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining for today's Right to Read. Extra Pen. A powerful opportunity to come together around one of the most urgent, let me repeat that, urgent civil rights issues at our time, literacy. First, I want to extend our sincere thanks to two organizations that helped make the work possible. To Read to Grow, thank you for your tireless efforts to ensure that children across Connecticut have access to books, early literacy support, and an opportunities to thrive. Your commitment to equity and literacy continues to inspire and drive real change. And to the Harvard Public Library, thank you for graciously hosting us in this space that represents the heart of community, learning, and access. Public libraries are essential partners in the fight for educational justice, and we're grateful to be here. As president of the Greater Hartford NAACP, I want to acknowledge the right to read is more than an academic issue. It is a civil rights issue. Far too long, systemic inequities have denied too many children the chance to become confident, capable readers. It's time we change that and hold our systems accountable for doing it. That's why I'm deeply honored to introduce today's featured speaker, Kareem Weed. Kareem is a co-founder and executive director of Fulcrum, a national organization working to ensure that all children learn to read and that no child is left behind due to poor instruction or low expectations. He also serves as a leader with the NAACP Oakland Branch Education Committee, where he has been a powerful advocate for literacy as a fundamental civil right. You may also know him from the documentary, The Right to Read, where his voice brought national attention to the deep inequities in how reading is taught and what we can do to fix it. Kareem brings not just expertise, but heart and a fierce belief and burden of every child. After Kareem's speech, we will hear from a critical state level update on the implementation of research-based literacy instruction from the esteemed Dr. Melissa Hickey, Director of the Center for Literacy for the State of Connecticut. At this time, please join me in welcoming a true champion for education, Kareem Weed.
Evening. Listen, I only got 15 minutes before the 5 years, you let me know I'm gonna be in more. Corey mentioned the civil rights issue in the NAACP. Last year, the NAACP's president, Derek Johnson, put financial resolution policy about this, about evidence-based instruction, role and for K-12. And then the year before, the Ontario Human Rights Commission put out something called the Human Rights Report. Whether you call it a human right or a civil right, either way it goes. Question, how many people work in school? How many are teaching in school? Elementary school folks? You just got your hand the whole time. And what curriculum do y'all use to? Say it, what wisdom? We use foundation school. Montessori. Foundation, literacy. Anyone else? Okay. All right, let's get into it. First of all, do a little bit of homework. The policy environment here is not bad. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's not bad. Young lawmakers, there's been some people doing some work. I was just in New York the other day. They have 218 policies needed to really drive this. 2. Mississippi have 17, Alabama has 18, North Carolina has 18. They have 2. It's a big, huge meeting. All these people talking lots of fancy stuff. I got 2 policies. Get to work. You don't even need policy. Right? You guys are like 14, I don't know offhand. It's up there. So legislators have been putting in time and work. So, and I've had the opportunity to work with a sister who's the head of the department there. So the foundation, so I started looking at something, that's the case. What else are we looking at? So I started looking at curriculum, some of the different things people use. The next thing I looked at is the college of education. Are they preparing people to teach reading? See, California, it's a hot mess. We have a ton of colleges, and most of them get F on the most successful of teacher quality rating. Stanford has an F. You know, you're a parent, you get a teacher Stanford, they go, my kid don't got an F. They have no idea how to teach child, none. Reviewing, guesses, for all the rest. They have no idea. Under records all day long. You know, if it wasn't so tragic, it would be funny. But our kids are, so there's that. So you guys don't have a situation. I know not everyone's college reports out, that's one thing. But the ones that do, are in pretty good shape. So I'm like, okay, so the policy's good. The colleges of ed, the ones reported, are at least, in the game. So what's going on? What's going on? That's our digging. And excuse me for my bluntness. I came a long way, so you get what you get. It is what it is. I looked at the teacher contract. Now I always, a lot of people have great slogans and websites and buzzwords, and equity and DEI and all the rest. And it all sounds, I love that. Fine. But show me the calendar, your curriculum, and the budget. And I'll tell you what you stand in terms of justice. How you spend your time. How you spend your time. How you spend your trade. That's what I want to know. So I looked at the contract. I saw 225 minutes a week. That's what I saw. Was I wrong? At elementary school, that was y'all, that's 225, right? That's like 45 minutes a day. Now understand, that's 45 minutes a day for everyone. If I'm standing here right now, I guarantee you the math person is right here saying the same thing. They want their time too. Right? They got science in 225. If you have a curriculum, let's take Wicked Wisdom. Wicked Wisdom doesn't come with the old version. It comes with its own foundational skills program. You have to have another program, and you staple on that. You give the teachers 2 programs, 225 now. Keep that number in, 225. 2, and they got to be prepared every day. So if you're a teacher, especially a new teacher, you come in. I saw Teach for America back there. New teachers, first, second, teachers. Most kids look like me and nothing. They teach us Teach for America. Somebody that's new. I'm just telling you how it goes. And they got 225 to prep with 2 programs, just in reading, what can go wrong? I love the policy. I love all the energy behind it, but at the end of the day, our kids need people. They need consistency. They need discipline. They need focus. Structural literacy is not just having certain methods. It's the consistent implementation of build on this every day. This is what the routines are your power. And I know sometimes people say, "Oh, well, so that's what is it? That's disempowering teachers because you scripting this implementation." I come from Martin Collins Tree. If you don't know, look at Martin Collins, one of the greatest educators of the new. She takes kids in Chicago who the system had given up on. They call them educatively retarded. I know we don't use those proper language nowadays, but that's what they used to say. Those same kids graduated cum laude, magna cum laude from colleges all around the country. Working, doing great things. The ones that the system had given up on. And she was doing this. They didn't call it science reading. We have names for them. It was just good teaching. And I got news for you. So what we do, because we're so educated, we say, well, these children over here need oral language development because they're multilingual learners. These kids over here need something else because they're dyslexic kids. These kids over here because they're black, and we want this and we want that, and everybody wants their stuff. So what happens is the publishing companies throw all that stuff in there because they gotta make that sell. Dyslexic kids, you need this, boom, throw that in. Bilingual kids, you want that, boom. It's not a person's business, right? You want that kid, boom, there you go. So when a teacher gets this bag, all this stuff, all these advocacy groups, because they had to make the sale, and they take this home, and at best, they're going to come out with Swiss cheese instruction. At worst, they're going to end up divorced. Because if you're serious about getting all kids, you got to plan for those kids. If they only give you 225 in the school, you spending 500 out of the school. I'll tell you, I bear witness to this. And there's nobody to say I'm sorry when it's all said and done. We have to make sure that our audio matches our video. We have to organize our structures and our advocacy in a way that maximizes students' potential for consistent instruction in Tier 1. That's, let me translate that. In your regular class, you'll sit down and get it. Well, however many in the room, that class, not the one down the hall, whatever they call that one. No shame, if you gotta go down the hall, go down the hall. But in your regular, you have a civil right to quality, prepared, consistent instruction every day. I don't care what you look like. I don't care how you walk, I don't care where your parents come from. I don't care if you're dark skin, light skin. I don't care if you're multilingual. That's what they call fervor. No, not fervor. Nothing wrong with faith. That's the one. Free and appropriate public education. Now, it's free, but oftentimes it's not appropriate. And I got news for you. Inappropriate education is anything but. Not maybe not now. When I was preparing for this, I was trying to Google where to go, and I was confused. Hotels, you guys are very hospitable. Thank you so much. New Haven and Harvard and this and that. I was on my phone Googling stuff, and I just started putting stuff in, not Googling, going through my messages. And I typed in Harvard, and stuff popped up. I'm trying to find how to get here. This is last night. And when I did that, I think I hit all inboxes. There are a bunch of all inboxes. So we do all my emails, through all different accounts. And a name popped up. And I said, no, that's not it. She's not running. I don't know who this is, but she's not the one running this show. But then my spirit said, read that email. It was a long email. I don't like long emails. And I read the email, and the young lady's name. I find it sad. The young lady graduated from school here, and she couldn't. And she's now in college. And this is a year ago, to the very week of this, she wrote me and wrote it back. I didn't get the mail because I changed, the change service and all that. But when I did all inboxes, it popped up. We oftentimes, we avert our eyes to the bottom of the well. And praise God, she seems to be doing okay. I haven't had a chance to speak directly with her yet, but she seems to be enduring to her credit. But what I read, it truly troubled me because she made it through the system. She immigrated here, in Puerto Rico, Ohio State. But she came to Connecticut as a kindergarten. So school's all the way up. And it didn't work out too good. It was always something. By the time she got to third grade, they had her in the back of the class. You don't have to go back in class doing this and doing that, drawing and coloring and all that. She learned, this is the thing. She learned how to navigate things because, of course, she had her IEP and all that stuff because people were doing it. She couldn't read and she couldn't talk to me. I thought, well, maybe because she's 7 over. Then trying to figure out technology kind of saved her. Because in technology, she's able to do speech to text and this and that. And kids, we talk about taking out cell phones in school for kids. A lot of kids, that's the only thing that's helping them understand what's going on. I'm trying to tell you. What's going on in the classroom. They have the phone on and it's listed, it's translated right there. And so anyway, she wrote to me and said, yeah, I was passed through. And what struck me the most was she said that people knew. They knew. Everybody was just busy doing their job. So nobody did the job. That's not my job. That's not my student. That's not my class. That's not my school. That's not my district. At what point do we, as a community, say these are all our students? I mean all She might not be in the class role, but if I see you and I know you have a need, I'm either a teacher or I'm either an educator or I'm not. I might not be the one to be able, maybe I don't have the training, but I'm not going to avert my eyes like I did see what I saw. The number one thing that I want to communicate, I know we have a plan and everything, there has to be a culture shift where we just take ownership of the children, all our children. And that's tougher to do than it is to say because a lot of times we just don't play well in the sandbox. So I understand Connecticut is a good liberal state, and people in good liberal states like to think that we're all, we all sing kumbaya in the morning, we all, watch newsreels and vote a certain way and do this and that. And we think the people down south are crazy and the people out west don't have stuff together. And what about kids? Judging too about the food. The question is, do we love our children more than we dislike each other? And I honestly don't know the answer. Last thing, my possibility. I'm not telling you this. I'm not judging you. I had to answer for myself. I used to teach all black kids. Spoke in California, 35 kids in the classroom. I ended up having 45. If you're a black man, you're a pretty good teacher, they're going to bring more kids in the classroom. Hey, can you get in your room today? So I had 45 pretty much. And I love the teachers for my calling. It cost me, but I could teach. Any kid, anytime, anywhere. That was my mantra. And I ran out of gas, and so I took a break. And then in the middle of vacation, principal called me and was like, Weaver, I need you. I class. I heard you, I know about your reputation. I need you. I need you to teach you something. When somebody said they need you, it's just like something too. I was like, wow, I'll be there. When I got there, I saw 35 brown faces. I didn't say black faces. I said brown faces looking at me, and half of them didn't speak English. And I had to ask myself, can I still bring out of me that same spirit, that same, you don't make it anyhow. That level of planning and preparation and diligence and care and attention to detail. But these children, as I do the ones that look like me, you understand? I had to, and I honestly did not. I didn't. I took a leap of faith. I have probably 7 godchildren. Listen, I have 8 godchildren from that one. I had an earlier run in the all black school. In this one, so what I found out was good teaching is good teaching. It was a bilingual class. Of course, had more kids in class, 5 kids. So what do we do? But I found out the kids are kids. And what the kids needed in that classroom was the same thing that the other kids needed. They needed oral language development consistently. They needed me to start from sounds, from biological awareness, and walk it all the way up. They needed me not to skip a step. Same thing. They needed me to take the content areas, high school teacher, the content areas, and infuse language objectives into them every day. Every day. That's how you get into college and career. Every day, the consistency in the content areas. And when that happened, it was like, check your learning. So I had to wrestle with the same question asking, are these all our kids or not? And do you have any? This is a policy issue anymore. It's not a funding issue. You guys spend pretty money. I'm sure there's always a need for more money. But Mississippi only spends $15 million in fall into programs. That's how church is. So that's not it. There's some curriculum issues. It's not the university necessarily at all. But it's a cultural issue. It's all things issue. And you can do it. So I look forward to the conversation tonight because if you can make up your mind and you're going to stand on it, that if all kids actually means all kids, there's a path forward. I look forward to discussing it.
I'm paying attention. No. You need the whole, you go there. You work there. All right, then.
So, good evening. My name is Melissa Rodriguez. I'm the director of the Center at the State Department of Education. It is such a pleasure and honor to be here tonight. The venue is actually beautiful. It's a beautiful place. It's a perfect place. So thank you for having us here tonight. I am a teacher. I was a teacher in the State Department, elementary school and middle school teacher. So you can't take the teacher out of me. I'm going to start with a poem. And this poem was written by Earl Mills, who is an adult and has a job and 5 kids and married and doing really well, has a house. But he had a secret. And his secret was that he couldn't read. So he lived throughout his life not being able to read. But he wrote this beautiful poetry. So you might ask, well, how does he write poetry? Read. His wife. So they teamed together. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this poem to you. And while I'm doing that, be thinking about what does that mean to not be able to read? What does it mean to be illiterate? Because this poem is My Name is Illiterate by Earl Mills. I'm red, yellow, black, and white, from every nation and tongue, old, middle-aged, and young. I have no boundaries, generational or race. My father couldn't read, now I take his place. You look for me in all the wrong places, for I'm closer than you think. Sitting in a church pew, pretending to read just like him. Hidden in plain sight, woven into the fabric of society because of my one ignorance. Masquerading as literate has become my game because of the shame of my real name. Avoiding situations in fear of hearing this word, read, that I cannot do. Many tried to give me a face with social status or race. I'm just ordinary people that cannot read. Embarrassment keeps me from coming to you. Normally it takes a tragedy for it to break through. The thought that illiterate imparts in your mind, disparity needs to be refined. I've tried to paint a picture on the canvas of your mind to help you understand this illiterate life of mine. So once again, being a teacher, why don't you take a moment, turn to the person next to you, and have a short conversation, only about a minute, so about 30 seconds each, to talk about what picture did Earl paint in the canvas of your mind about his illiteracy. So go for it. Turn to the person next to you. You may not know that person. Introduce yourself. Okay, you have about 30 seconds. All right, close up your conversation. So Earl's story is powerful, and unfortunately it's not unique. Across our country, about 32 million adults, roughly 14% of the population, struggle to read. And that number represents real people. Parents, neighbors, people with whom we work, community members. But Earl's story gives us hope. Because his story didn't end with his struggle, it continued with learning because he enrolled in adult ed classes and he learned to read. and he continued to write poetry. And that's the message I want to hold on to today, that illiteracy is preventable. When we build strong early literacy foundations early, when we support families, communities, and when we make reading a shared priority, we can change these stories. Every child who learns to read confidently in elementary school represents a future adult who won't face these barriers that people like Earl could not do and what he faced. Together we have the power and the responsibility to make sure all Connecticut children experience reading success early in their lives. And before I jump into more details, I just want to thank certain people, because this is definitely a community effort, and the center and the State Department cannot do it alone. We are fortunate to have Commissioner Russell Tucker as our commissioner, our Deputy Commissioner, Charles Hughes, both of whom are advocates for students in the classroom and learning to read. We have amazing families and literacy partners, educators, coaches, administrators, and state staff who want to ensure that every child in Connecticut becomes a confident reader. Shouting out names, the center, the people with whom I work. I am so blessed to work with a talented group of women, intelligent, passionate women. Erin Edwards, Cody Fusco, Candice LeConte, Caroline Messenger, Etheria Rivera, and Deirdre Southgrace. And we work closely with our colleagues across the state, including our sister agency, which is the Office of Dyslexia and Reading Disabilities. That's Kristen Allen, Amy Gobbin, Lisa Gianni, Athena McLean. Did I forget anyone, Lisa? Okay. And then, of course, we have the Reading Leadership Implementation Council, whose guidance has been invaluable in shaping implementation strategies and ensuring alignment across districts. And our commitment is unwavering, and we're joined by extraordinary partners from higher ed, community organizations like Millie, our superintendent organization, and national networks who walked with us, offering expertise, resources, and encouragement. It's truly a collective effort. So I've been asked to share today about Connecticut's progress in literacy and reading, and if I had to sum that up in one word, it would be change. As we know, change is not easy. Anyone who's ever tried to diet, maybe quit a bad habit, a positive change like have a baby, or like me, I'm an empty nester and decided to be a pop. Those are the bags you're seeing under my eyes. But change takes patience and persistence. Now imagine leading this change across the entire state, 179 districts and charter schools, supporting educators, families, leaders, and families as we shift instructional practice that has been embedded for 20 or more years to align with what decades of research tell us is how children learn to read. So that's the journey that Connecticut is on. In June 2021, Governor Lamont signed into law Senate Bill 1202, advancing the reading success of all of our students. And we call this the Right to Read law here in Connecticut. Senator Patricia Billy Miller sponsored and championed this bill, and it passed with strong bipartisan support. And it set into motion one of the most strongest, significant statewide efforts in our history to ensure that every K-3 child receives scientifically based, high-quality literacy instruction. And with the leadership and the tireless efforts of the Center, the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus, the Ed Committee, and literacy partners, we've been able to provide numerous high-quality implementation support. Because it's not just taking a program and plunking it down. It's exactly what you're saying. You have to then increase the knowledge and skills of those who have the programs in their hands. Thanks to generous funding from the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus, the Ed Committee, the Governor's Office, we were able to provide high-quality professional learning to teach educators and support them with these changes. to identify their strengths, address their challenges, and grow together. And 95% of our districts engaged in this no cost to them center provided professional learning, where they received coaching support, completed district plans for literacy, outlining their short and long-term goals. Now, this work has truly been a partnership. We partner with the Hill for Literacy, Literacy House, CERC, UConn, the RESCs, which are Regional Education Service Center, CAPS, who am I forgetting here? TNTP, WestEd, PCG. All those people here in the audience, schools, community agencies, people I've just listed, could you stand up, please? Because you're here, I see you all. I see people I worked with in Hartford. I see you all. Just raise a hand if you don't want to stand. But you're all out here. Yeah, you're here. There's more of you out there. Thank you. I would like to acknowledge again all of you and the incredible educators, leaders, and staff across our state who are working tirelessly to make sure that every child becomes an independent and proficient reader. Your dedication, the extra hours, the collaboration, the deep belief in what's possible for kids is what brings our literacy vision to life every day. It is our goal in Connecticut that every child can read independently and proficiently, and we know that being able to read is a gateway to all other learning. It determines access to academic success, civic participation, like voting, and long-term well-being. Every child deserves this. So thank you again for this opportunity to share Mr. Hunt's poem, as well as share a little bit about what it's like to move and support a state, because I can't do it alone. So thank you to all of you. And it's a big change for the benefit of our students. And I'm done. Thank you.
Hi everyone, how are we doing tonight? Good to see you. You want to do a stretch break? I'm also a former teacher. Can you just stand up? We all have to move our bodies a little bit. That's part of teaching and learning too. I'm Susanna Olsenbeck. I'm the Executive Director of Read to Grow. I am so thrilled to be here tonight. You never know when you plan an event how many people are going to show up. And look at this room. Give yourselves a round of applause. It's a Monday night and it was rainy today, so incredible. And we also are live streaming this event, so people are tuning in from their homes. We will send out a recording as well, because there are a lot of gems that have already been spoken tonight. I'm sure more. I want to thank all the community partners that came together to plan this event. New Alliance, Lakeisha's in the room, they stepped up to fund the initial seed of this idea of this event. There's a similar event happening tomorrow in New Haven. So if you can't get enough, go to New Haven, sign up, you can live stream that one too. All good. And I'll just say a brief bit about Hartford. So when this opportunity came up, and I started asking the networks of folks that do this work, it was an immediate yes. And you can see the challenge of fitting all the logos in at the bottom. I leave that up just to point it out. There's so many folks who are invested in this. I do want to give a special shout out to Hartford Public Library. We are here. Their team is incredible. Nicole, Nelson, Teach for America stepped up to help us plan this and bring some of the panelists together. Phenomenal. Thank you to all the teachers who are here tonight. I also want to really give a heartfelt shout out to Hartford Parent University. To Millie and Miss Bigelow. What you may not know is there's childcare being provided tonight, so families can be here. There's also translation happening in that part of the room so that all families can participate in this conversation. The United Way of Central and Northeastern Connecticut, stalwart partner in the working community, Connecticut Children's, Educators for Excellence, the Fund for Greater Hartford, Literacy How, the NAACP of Greater Hartford, the Reading League of Connecticut, and Urban Alliance. All of these incredible partners coming together. So as you heard from Mr. Weaver and Dr. Hickey, tonight is about keeping the focus on literacy and continuing the push to ensure that all children in Connecticut have access to high-quality literacy instruction. I want to situate ourselves in Connecticut a bit more and start from the beginning. I'm speaking to you tonight from the perspective of several identities. Most importantly, I'm a parent of a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old who are enrolled in public schools in Connecticut. My 9-year-old has had a really hard time learning how to read. My 7-year-old is on grade level. And these are children that have grown up in a home with all of the privileges afforded to them, all the books possible, all of the reading at night, every single night, right? All of that. And yet my 9-year-old has a journey. We're there to support him, but he has a journey. I'm also a former high school special education teacher. And I taught many students, 9th through 12th grade, who were not reading on grade level. And I was sent to the teacher trainings for the curriculum that Connecticut has said goodbye to. And I know firsthand, being in a classroom and being asked to teach kids using a curriculum that was failing them. But I didn't know how to access resources that taught me how to teach them how to read, because that's what we were told to do. Fast forward to now, I'm the executive director of Read to Grow here in Connecticut. We are focused on early literacy before kids even get to school, making sure that they have access to high quality reading materials, but also that their families are supported in being their child's first teacher. So that by the time kids arrive at school, they have been exposed to rich language and all of those amazing things that happen that influence brain development and make kids more receptive. So by the time they get to school, teachers can pick up and run with them. I just want to show you 2 maps of Connecticut. Here's the state of Connecticut. Those are school districts. Those outlines there are school districts. The darker the red, the higher the percentage of children coming into kindergarten with low literacy skills. The lighter, the higher the percentage of children coming in with strong literacy skills. That's according to the KEI, which is the benchmark that the state uses currently for kindergarten teachers. We can have a whole other event about that at a different time. When we map poverty onto this, the bigger the yellow circles, the higher the percentages of children who are living in those districts at or below the federal poverty level. It tracks for the most part, and then there's a couple of surprises in there. And I would be remiss to not show one more map that shows where Read to Grow currently is targeting our work and where we have work left to do. And this is a map that represents all of us. Let's make this heat map that much brighter over the coming years. I'm going to go back to this slide and I'm going to leave it up, actually, over literacy during the panel. And I am going to invite our exchange panel up. I'm going to start saying their names, and as I say their names, I'm going to invite them up. We are trying to save some time. We gave them gift bags here on stage, so that's what you see on the chairs. There's also water bottles for them. So we are going to welcome Mr. Kareem Weaver. And you can go up on that side on the step there, not the actual stairs, but there's a little step. Or you can come this way and find your way around, whatever makes sense. And while you're getting on the stage, I'm going to invite Dr. Ratley, Deputy Superintendent of Hartford Public Schools. I'm going to invite Representative Jennifer Leeper, our Connecticut State Representative and the co-chair of the Education Committee. Dr. Melissa Hickey, Director of the Center for Literacy Research and Reading Success. I'm going to invite up Amanda Kushner, the Assistant Director of Elementary Teaching and Learning for Harvard Public Schools. I'm going to invite up a teacher, Caitlin Marinelli. She's a 10th grade English teacher at Harvard Public Schools. And last but certainly not least, a student, a senior at Hartford Public Schools, Hessiana Henry. Please come and All right, so we're switching the mics here. Also make it go smoothly, there's no feedback. Testing. All right. So, here we are, this incredible panel, and we've got some questions for them. I want to acknowledge that if you registered for this event, you had an opportunity to ask some questions. We are not able to answer all the questions that came in, but there will be follow-up emails with more specific answers to some of those questions that came up, so I want to acknowledge that. All right, so the first question is really for all of the panelists. And we can start on this side for this first question with Ms. Amanda. Addressing illiteracy feels particularly timely today, as we've heard from all of the other speakers. Can you all share about why the mission of building early literacy skills feels important to you personally?
The mission to build early literacy skills is important to me personally because reading is a critical skill to access our learning. That was really reiterated in the Right to Read film. When I think about my own dedication and commitment to this work, I think about my own experience learning to read and also my experience as a second grade teacher teaching my students foundational literacy skills. My main journey is I moved from New York to Connecticut between first and second grade. And I remember when I was in second grade always sharing that in New York you learn to read in second grade, but in Connecticut you learn to read in first grade. And it was because I felt so embarrassed that I didn't know how to read. And I was very privileged to have extensive tutoring so that I didn't need to repeat second grade in explicit phonics instruction. And I know much of my struggle as a reader is because I was taught with whole language, and that didn't work. Fast forward to my experience teaching, I started teaching at Kansas in Hartford Public Schools, and we had extensive training daily in structured literacy practices, but we also still had a lot of balanced literacy practices in place. And thinking about my experience as a teacher, I had students where I saw what we were doing and the practices in place working and students learning to read. And I also saw students just like myself where what we were doing wasn't working, which has really grounded me. I always have the students in mind, both who I know got it and those students where I wish I could go back and do more now that I know better the structured literacy practices. That is what grounds me.
For me, obviously, my work field is in education, but looking beyond that, particularly at some pieces that were brought up earlier today around social justice, civic responsibility, my purpose in the work that I do, if I'm speaking from just a very personal level, it has to do with understanding which of our populations and who's not receiving the rights that are due to them, and what are some of those rights, knowing that literacy is in fact one of them. So I make it my business to ensure that I do my part, not only to recognize, but to break barriers for those exact populations that have a right to a successful life just like any of us do, and doing my part each and every day.
So I grew up in Illinois. It's called Elgin. And at the time, the philosophy was an open classroom. So you would go and you just kind of absorb and touch. And that is not the way to teach reading. I couldn't read. I couldn't do my math facts. That did not work for me. I was very fortunate because my parents are teachers and they helped me learn how to read and write. To this day, I'm still a terrible speller and I'm so thankful for spell check. But also, I fast forward when I started teaching second grade and I walked in the classroom all excited and everything was all pretty and everything set up. And the kids came in and they couldn't read. And I went to a very well-known university here in Connecticut. And I didn't know how to teach reading. So I once again became very fortunate. I had great mentors in school. One was a reading consultant, and she was like, oh no, it's not going to be right. So through her, and then going back to school for my master's in special ed, I learned how to teach children to read. And actually, I was also teaching myself along the way. I learned great skills by working on my phonics and stuff as an adult age. So over the years, it's really become my mission to support and mentor others around the science of reading and advocate for the right for all children to read, because I know how deeply reading is tied to issues of opportunity.
So the question is, can you share about why the mission of building early literacy skills feels important to you personally?
Sure. I'll be real quick. The young lady I mentioned before, the one who, her name is Alicia Ortiz. And she said, this is my answer to that question. She will say, let's see, I'm a 19-year-old girl, a special education student who was never taught to read. I grew up in Hartford. Now I'm attending Newtown, Hartford. You may ask yourself, why that's how I go to college. Couldn't read right. Anyway, she goes on and she explains that at the very end, she says something. This is my answer to your question. Would you mind reading this right here? This is mine.
As a coach, not determine my success in the world.
That's what it is. You think our kids don't know what's going on? They know. They see what's going on. Now, when they get a little bit older, we start touching our purse when they come up the store. Because we know what's going on. And we know that access denied metastasizes that. So my why is that, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I'm not in the wait to fail crew. We can do this early and help kids so that they don't end up. I mean, and this is a child, she's in college, she's reading writing. That's a whole other story. Most kids in that situation, oftentimes not a very happy ending. So that's my why, and why we should start doing it early.
Thank you. I was in graduate school in Chicago, and I had originally a different focus. And while we were there on my classes, I learned that in Chicago, 6% Chicago public school students graduated from college. And I'm from New Hampshire. New Hampshire is a pretty modest place, but I felt I had believed that the key to the American dream, the key to realizing any future in social mobility, was through access to high quality public education. And then every opportunity would be open to you. And living in Chicago was the first time I realized there are huge groups of children in this country who are denied that opportunity. And then we turn around when they're grown-ups and blame them for that. And so I changed everything, honestly, in my life. And I went and I worked actually in a high dosage after-school tutoring program on the west side of Chicago. I think a place now that is under siege, and that's a whole other story and it breaks my heart. But these kids are just as deserving as every other child, and I could never spend a moment of my life doing anything other than putting every energy I have into making sure all kids get access to this great public education.
My name is Caitlin Marinelli. My 12th year at Cumberland High School as an English teacher in both 9th grade and 10th grade, and seeing students and their access to literacy beforehand, you can directly see the consequences of how they can engage in school. And for many of them, it's already difficult to engage in school, never mind if literacy is an aspect of that. And in terms of students graduating within 4 years, that is directly impacting their success in graduating high school in 4 years, never mind beyond high school. And so working with students the last 12 years, seeing both how they can overcome those things and the different challenges that they face is
Hi, I'm Henry. This is important to me because I have three little brothers, and they're currently going through the school system right now, and I want them to be able to articulate. I have a little brother, he has dyslexia, and it's difficult for him to read, and I don't want him to go through the struggles of getting frustrated with reading. I want him to be able to understand how to read better, and yeah.
Well, we are really glad that you're on the stage tonight. Thank you for being here, and thank you for speaking up. And everybody in this room is with you. All right, so I'm gonna pause for a second and just recognize that we designed this panel to have sort of a spectrum of expertise, right? We've got our national perspective, we have our state perspective, we've got our district perspective, we have our classroom perspective, and then we have our student perspective. So in 2021, the right to read legislation in Connecticut, right, that's 14 points that Mr. Weaver brought up, to 18 should be in place. 2021, that's when that legislation passed, not too long ago. And I think it was just this summer that all districts began implementing what their new curriculum would be this summer, 2025. So as we look at the lessons learned over the last couple of years and we look forward, I'd love to hear from the panelists if you feel moved to answer this question. Can you speak to your experiences communicating from state to local levels and vice versa? And what state and local systems are helping to ensure alignment and support? And what structures do we still need to continue this momentum? And I'm happy to repeat the question when you're here. Do you want to take this one to start from the state perspective?
All right, what I would like you to do is just cross your arms. Cross your arms. All right, just note which arm is on the top. Thank you. Right, now uncross your arms, shake them out a little bit. Now cross them the other way. So if your right is on top, put your left on the top. If your left is on the top, put the right on the top. Right? Okay. Thank you for indulging me. That's change. It is not easy, right? It is not easy to do something small like that. And that's what we've been doing here in the state. So So we've had to, this legislation has lifted the entire state and made change happen in 179 districts and charter schools. You can see on the heat map behind us the impact that we're going to have by this legislation. The vision is in the data, right? I say to date that, so we have a strategy, a literacy strategy, and right now it's K to 3, but we're expanding it K to 12. And this includes all the different scientifically based, evidence-based practices that should be in place to support districts and schools in moving forward. Because like I said before, it's not just simply having a program. A program's really great, it's really necessary, and we needed to have it. But then what we also were able to do was to train people on how to teach the science of reading. People like myself who was in the classroom and didn't know what I didn't know. That's what we say a lot here in Connecticut. You don't know what you don't know. So we have really engaged with the partners that I spoke about before to lift up people's knowledge so they understand their own why and they understand their how. How do we do this? Because we don't want it to be dependent on zip code. We want every child in Connecticut having an opportunity to read. So what structures are in place? We've been very fortunate, like I mentioned before when I was standing there, that we've had the support of the Ed Committee, the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus, and the governor who's given us funding, where we could then turn the funding over to the states and some of the districts and the charter schools, and they could purchase the materials, they could purchase professional learning. We have provided no-cost professional learning to districts, to charter schools, to help them understand how do you implement using the science. Change is more than a one-year process or a few-year process. The law did say that July 1 of 2025, all districts must be implementing K-3. A lot have already started. They started before that. Some are in third and fourth year of doing this and seeing such improvement. Teachers are thrilled. Kids are happy. You were talking about classrooms. I taught in middle school, and the kids who didn't make it through the classroom day was usually because they couldn't read. They couldn't admit that they couldn't read, so they had to be cool. And they had to do some kind of behavior, right? It's better to get kicked out of the classroom than to stay there and acknowledge you can't read. So anyways, we need to continue these supports. We need to continue family supports. We need to continue community supports. We need to continue to support our educators with this change for the benefit of all kids. Oh, please do. I don't know if I hit on a question.
Absolutely. I just wanted, Dr. Hickey mentioned kind of the setting the stage in terms of at the state level with implementing curricula that was aligned to the science of reading, all of those pieces which absolutely helped us. We got to the district level of implementing curricula ourselves. And I'd just like to add that at our level, at the local level, we took definite steps to ensure that we worked alongside our partners, worked alongside our parent organizations. So many administrators are in the audience tonight, teachers and so forth, district leaders. It took all of us, including our board vice chair, and yes, because it took that level of commitment holistically so that after the standards were set, we had to get to work because the kids were coming. So once all of the training and all those pieces took place, when the little ones are right there in front of you, and knowing that you've gone to this wonderful, well-paced training, deep, rich, it was serious. I was in another state there, but I know exactly what it's like. Serious training. To put it into practice, when you had the 20 little ones looking at, maybe it was 15 little ones looking at you, depending on you, not only to carry a standard across, but also to meet their individualized needs, it took all of us to make sense of it. And I'll be honest with you, we are in year 2, of implementation of our curriculum. And every year we're figuring it out. We started it last year and said, guess what? That was year 0. That's what we're gonna call it. Because we got to see what it's like, what it feels like. Let's engage more parents, more students even, teachers, see what this is like as we build upon it. Because it's going to take that time for change to take place. But what we can't do is waste time, hoping that we're moving in the right direction. We take advantage of every moment that we have.
Can expand. So while we're in year 2 of our entire compendium in Hartford Public Schools, we've been on this literacy journey since around 2019 and have been working tirelessly to shift practices from balanced literacy to structured literacy. In 2019, our focus was guided reading, and we realized that that was not aligned to best practice. We adopted foundations back in 2019 and have been working continuously on strong implementation of phonics instruction and phonemic awareness instruction. And we also know that's only one portion of students' literacy experience, and knew that there was a need for more support with language comprehension. Through support with Dr. Hickey and the state team, we were able to adopt Witten Wisdom last year and have spent significant amount of professional learning time with our teachers on deeply internalizing the curriculum to make sure that we understand the routines, the content, and then we're continuing to support our teachers both in growing in language comprehension and continuing to strengthen our foundational skills as we expand on our foundations, instruction, and in both our word recognition and language comprehension work, we've been looking deeply at that repetitive practice. And we're excited to work with the Hill for Literacy team this year with a cohort of 10 schools and growing in those instructional routines, because we know what we are teaching is essential, but we also know how we are teaching it is so important.
And Mr. Weaver, just one quick point before we pass it down. You mentioned earlier about the bags. So about the different bags and things to put in the bags for the teachers. So Amanda obviously is an expert in this field, and you heard a lot of technical language about all of these pieces that we put together so that by the time our children come into the door, our teachers feel as though they are confident in ensuring that they deliver this instruction in a way that actually changes not only their practice, but outcomes for students. And then as we work with our parents, Millie, I remember, first meeting, parents were working on the curriculum, like actually touching it, seeing what they could do in order to help their children at home, to partner with us. And so like all that to say, yes, starting with the standard, but then knowing just how comprehensive the work is to make sure that every single child gets what they need.
Okay, I'm gonna do a quick, I need your help. All right, so wake up. I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna give you the name of a city. And I want you to tell me, I want you to either say hood or not the hood. Take it however you want it. I'm gonna give you a city, and you either say hood or not the hood. I'm not from here, so I got a list of cities I don't know. This could be a hood. All right, here we go. Ready? Glastonbury. They was quick with that one. All right. Newington. South Windsor. Let's see if it's true. How do you say that one? Avon. Yeah, they got money out there. Middletown. Middleton. Oh, they got a little hood. They got a little hood. Not a lot, but they got a little bit. Okay, just come on. Vernon. Not the hood. Last one. Cheshire? Okay. I'll put it on the list. So y'all know that list what this year, man, I've been a lot of places and worked, a lot of good people, a lot of good work, and there's a lot of good things being said and done, and effort is there and everything. But I look at that hood, you know what that list is? That's for the Kumon City. Y'all know about Kumar?
Yeah.
You know what they sell in Kumar? Basics. Foundational reading skills, foundational math skills. Then we go out the hood and say, oh, that's the love of reading. We don't want to. And then people paying top dollar for stuff in the not the hood places. Because they want their kids to get the stuff that we, so when I look at systems, I look at where the buzzards fly. People, man, what people with money say is they can do what they want to. Not my child. They're gonna get what they got. They're not gonna sit and argue with you on it. They're gonna go to thing. Listen, I say that because it's a clarifier for me. Like I said, I'm from here, but I see the same kind of all over the place. We have a system of educational apartheid. Those who have the money go pay for it. Everybody else on the other side of makes it. You get what you get. If your curriculum cannot be fully implemented with the planning time in your contract, that means the strategy is officially hope. I hope those teachers are going to go above and beyond. I hope. We all need hope. Hope is, there's nothing wrong with hope. Hope is good. But that's not a strategy. If you want to go get those kids, your system's got to line up. And we're no different here in Harvard than all over the country. There are a lot of great people doing good work, passing great policies, working their tails off with classes, but the structure is set up in a way that if you don't have the money to go to Middletown or wherever, Cheshire, you get what you get. That's the issue. I know that's not sexy, it's not popular, I understand. I'm not casting a spin, it is what it is. Our kids, we gotta figure out a way where we can organize ourselves. Where, now listen, there's some curriculum where it's light. The ones that are featured, Ed Trust had a podcast called Extraordinary Districts, doing with ordinary districts doing with extraordinary results. Went around the country, looked at places with high poverty but great achievement. And ones with low poverty, even better. Like they checked the ones who were breaking the curve. They were doing certain things. They went lighter than heavy. They did less, not more. They had less programs, not more programs. They teachers were training in science and reading. They used programs that were integrated, fully synthesized. Not I gotta take this one and that one, I'm gonna take this one and look at this and that. No. I'm talking about Seaford, Delaware. I just came back from there a couple weeks ago. They were last, they were almost about to be taken over by the state. The reading was so low. It was that bad. They were last. It was like rural and urban together. They got a lot of Muslim learners, black kids in Haiti, so they speak French. They have a lot of people complaining out of town, so poverty is off the charts. And everybody said, oh, it's the poverty, it's the trauma. You know, it's the family structure, the single parent, and all this. That's not the highest in the state. They made the changes. They changed the curriculum. The union league. My man said, yeah, now we have a waiting list. Brought a school worker from Oakland, he was like, yeah, well, that's because you guys probably pay them so much. He's like, oh no, they make $10,000 more down in Milford down the road. They want to be here. So now the middle school teachers, we got a crisis. A lot of them are starting to leave because they have crisis pedagogy. Lord Jesus. The kids start showing up being able to read, they didn't know what to do with them because they were so used to being a senior and doing all this other stuff. But now you got to teach math. Now you got to teach science. I'm not used to that. Now you understand, we start to identify with the problem. Our kids are like, man, you tell me why I just teach me. I can read. We've been reading. You see what I'm saying? All right, so my point is, there are some structural things that we have to at least look at. Now, that's not saying stop teaching what you got. But what I'm saying is, if you want to go after all kids, your systems have to be all kids systems. You have to have all kids prep time, all kids curriculum, all kids training, you know what I'm saying? And that's another one of those things. Well, district teachers do these curriculum cycles every 5 to 7 years, so it's tough because we just brought this curriculum. I'm not a bunch of you. There's rich people around that can cut that check. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't let our kids circle the drain because we don't have them. That's what legislators are for. That's what foundations and corporations, all that stuff is for. Cut the check. If our kids need certain things, and we as the adults, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yeah. A hard act to follow coming out after you. I was school administrator in New York City, in elementary school, and I moved to Connecticut, and I was shocked to learn in Connecticut at that time. Anyways, had the greatest achievement gap information. Achievement gap. I think if it's your kid, you can go call it. You know, your kid's being left behind. And now I represent Fairfield. The Fairfield Bridgeport border is one of the most segregated borders in America. And then when I was in New York City, we were one school district, 1.1 million children. I came to Connecticut to work for the State Department of Ed, and I worked in the data office doing policy around accountability. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? You got 500,000 kids in 207 districts, because everybody was like a scowl. I didn't fire that separate. And so I was, that's not my kid, that's not my problem, what's happening over there. And so I just want to say Senator Kathleen Miller is a woman with so much courage, who has consistently been speaking this truth to power, and I swear it is her will that passed this legislation in 2021. And I feel like I'm really to get here in this room, in this seat, but I am happy to make sure that everybody knows that she did this, because she's been saying for years, your zip code should not determine your destiny. Every single child has a right to learn to read and to be invested in and to graduate from school ready to thrive. And it shouldn't matter where you grew up, what your parents did, what the color of your skin is. And that it started with learning how to read and having the right strategies. And I think a big part of the work and part of why this is so hard is because there is a layer of shame and blame in making big changes. Nobody was intentionally teaching kids the wrong way. They dedicated their whole lives to raising up kids. And there is a lot of shame that comes with learning I was doing this the wrong way for 20 years. And then it takes a lot of courage to take that and say, when we know better, we got to do better. Because the kids in front of me are the ones who are counting on me to do that. And I think there's just been an incredible coalition, most of those people in this room, who have come together to transition us and say, there's no shame. We know better now, and we're moving in a new direction. We're doing right by our kids. And so I think that's been a big part of the work. And I've played a very small role, but I've been grateful to continue to have these conversations, to bring people into the work. Happened to be one of those moms that had a kindergartner when the COVID shut down here. So come March, we were really just starting to learn, he was home. And I'll never forget in the fall going to literacy night and learning the strategies and being told, oh, we don't prompt them to sound like a word anymore. And I was like, not my house. But it shouldn't be like that, right? It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be because I was able to do that. Anyways, so even in Fairfield now, we have gotten on board, and I'm grateful to people who have had the courage to do that in a new direction. Sorry, I went too long now. All right.
So this has been an extremely full night, and we only have a few more minutes to go. And we didn't get to all the questions, of course, because there's so many to ask. But I just want to put a little bit of a pleasant, non-scary spotlight on our teacher and our student on this panel. And I'm going to ask the teacher first, can you talk just a little bit, you're a high school teacher, right? So you have 10th grade students who are coming in. You haven't necessarily seen the students that are being impacted by the initial implementation of this curriculum yet. But can you talk as a high school teacher about what you anticipate this rollout will do and what the difference will be in your classroom?
Yeah, I think it should hopefully have a huge impact on the classroom. Right now, we're still definitely seeing the impacts of COVID on these students in terms of where they are at with literacy, and you can tell that they missed really critical time in their classroom, not to mention now that we know that the strategies we're using maybe weren't the best. Even I had Cassiana when she was in 10th grade, she's now a senior, even looking at where our seniors were winning in 10th grade versus the students I have now. It's a huge difference, and it is concerning, but I'm hopeful that we're taking the right steps to make these improvements, because they want to know better, they want to do better, but they don't necessarily know that there are people out there rooting for them and trying to do these things. So being able to go back and say, like, this is happening, and people are trying their best for you, is a very inspiring and hopeful.
Thank you so much. Cassiana, can you talk a little bit, and then you've had this question before, so hopefully it's not a surprise. Can you talk a little bit about how literacy skills impact your life and the daily lives of your peers? Why is being here tonight important to you?
I would say literacy has impacted my life in a positive way. In first grade, I wasn't the strongest reader, I would say, but with teachers like Ms. Bernelli, I have been able to gain my comprehension skills and reading skills. I'm an AP with income. Yeah, and I just, with a good support system, I would say I've been able to fall in love with reading and just literacy in general. I would say some of my peers that I've noticed personally, some of them don't have like a strong passion for reading, I would say, but I have a lot of friends who do enjoy reading and yeah.
You got it. And there's another scary statistic out there, which is that the number of adults who read for pleasure has dropped dramatically. 20% in the United States of adults actually read for pleasure. It's down from 60% when they did the same survey, I believe, in like 2014. So there's a lot of reasons for that, but reading for pleasure, right? Like that incredible journey that you can take. Something to keep in mind. The power of hope. So I'm going to throw a curveball to all the panelists to wrap up before we have closing remarks from Eric. You can take a second to just think about this, and we'll have everybody answer this. What is your call to action tonight? We have this room full of amazing people online who are watching us. This video will be shared. What is your call to action to this community as we move forward? Anybody can start on this.
I think we need folks to advocate for like a fundamental shift in how we educate our kids. Our kids are feeling more and more disconnected. Like school's not relevant for them. They don't have a lot to gain there. They don't see the importance of showing up every day. And that's a huge call to action for us to make sure that we are offering something in school they want to come and be a part of. I think for a long time we've been fiddling around the edges, and we need to be moving with like speed and urgency to meet this moment. And I think that's going to require some like, big changes. And if we thought that rethinking how we're teaching literacy was a big change, I think we've got a lot more big change ahead. And you don't have to answer what that is, but speaking to folks in the space and in your school communities and your legislators and the governor, saying we need to make education a priority. We are really worried about what will happen if we don't for our young people in the next generation. The pace of change is hard to keep up with. And what we're doing is too often not connecting with the young people. So we've got to rise to that challenge. And we can have a whole separate about that. But I hope you'll feel empowered to use your voice and bring in all the stakeholders who are in this space. We're really committed to doing that work. And we show up every day to meet the needs of our kids, and they often feel unsupported. So to feel even supported to take a risk, right? I think sometimes we're in a really risk-averse space. And feel the power of your own voice to be a part of this. I guess the hope.
For parents out there, go to school district in a skill-based spoken sequence. Skill-based. What are you teaching? What are they supposed to learn about when? Instead of like you track with someone. Make sure that the curriculum aligns up with the prep time. That's an action. It's gonna take some advocacy, but you gotta do that. If you don't do that, you're not gonna get all kids. Period. Also, you have to figure out how to go together. So that means you have to build coalition across demographic groups and all that stuff. You're gonna have to, this is not something you go to the board meetings and advocate for literacy just as a demographic. You gotta have a coalition. If you're trying to really move people, board members are politicians at the end of the day. When you come as a coalition that moves things a little bit, that's just politics. And the last thing I would say is you must avoid distraction. We are watching the Kardashians all day long. So football, what's the WNBA? The Sun, is that what it is? The Sun, like, it's always something with kids. They got to come up on the totem pole. They got to get to the top of the totem pole. Right? That's more important than whatever UConn is going to do. To me, it's to me. Find your people in that tribe and who prioritize it, and then move.
Always hard to follow people who speak so well. So I'm gonna piggyback off what they were saying. They were talking, Rick Leaper, to me, was expressing around the urgency, and Mr. Weaver around coalition. So I feel like Connecticut, we've moved from kind of just saying, hey, we have a problem, to then naming the problem, and now really moving forward to system level action. As I mentioned, we were graced with funding, there's public accountability, where districts are supposed to be doing a certain thing regarding instruction, but now it's really about the fidelity and people's capacity, a sustained investment in moving this forward. To me, that's the urgency. We have to keep this moving because every day kids are needing us. And we just need to keep moving. They deserve instruction that is aligned to the science, and they need this. So it's not an option, it's a right.
My call to action is to continue to engage the many stakeholders that have already been mentioned and that we talked about before. And in addition, I take it as my responsibility to ensure that in my advocacy, that local context comes up and that it is also acknowledged and understood, meaning for that dot, our dot, that's up there on the map, that we tease that apart and help others in my advocacy to know what that looks like in Hartford Public Schools, so that resources, be it time, people, or money, follow where we need the support.
Thinking about the elementary team and the work we've been doing in K-5, we have been working really hard on cohesion, and what Kareem said around simplifying really resonated with me, and how we can continue to support our teachers in the prep that we need daily. And my immediate call to action is the responsibility of continuing to support our teachers in implementation in our curriculum, knowing that we want our students to have strong, explicit phonics instruction daily and strong instruction in language comprehension. And so we're continuing to cohere the work we're doing, but I really appreciate the call to simplify as well.
I would say my call to action is for every student to be able to have the literacy skills they need in order to succeed in life, because literacy is really tied into everything we do in school. It's tied into math, reading, physics, just a bunch of subjects. So I think if we get kids to understand that basic concept of reading, then they will be able to flourish in all the other classes.
Mine would be to not only support, but to trust teachers. They are trying really, really hard to do right by students, and they are exhausted.
right now. And
In our district, and with my administration, I feel like I'm very lucky to be trusted by my administrator. I have many friends in school that are not, and they're trying so hard to do right by kids, and it's really important that we support and trust our teachers.
okay, give it up for the teachers. Well, our time together is coming to a close. The conversation could go on and on. Thank you for staying throughout all of it. Please continue to talk amongst yourselves to show up. There's going to be more of this. We will continue to have these conversations in public so that we can learn together and move forward together. So thank you very much. I'm going to invite to the stage Eric Harrison, the CEO and President of United Way, of Central and Northeastern United.
So much, Susanna. I don't want to keep anyone from your children, families, or prep time right now, so I'll try to make this brief. But just thank you all for being here today. Thank you for showing your interest and support in this topic. I actually had the privilege of seeing the documentary last year. Actually had a screening on it in North Hartford. So it's just a pleasure to have Kareem here with us. It's just a really special evening. You know, it was interesting when we heard the email, my communications manager looked at me because at every speech that I say, I talk about how we are about Onward 860, or Onward 860 vision means that within that area code, no matter where your zip code is within Onward 860, that does not determine your future. And so that is something that we stand for as an organization. We also stand for being united to end poverty, and one of those key pillars and strategies of ending poverty is literacy. So we're very much aligned with all the coalition partners that are here tonight, and just really appreciate Susanna and Read to Grow's leadership on this. We've been a proud partner of Read to Grow to help advance early childhood literacy skills so children achieve developmental and academic milestones. One of the things that we're really proud of in terms of advocacy, along with Read to Grow and other coalition partners in terms of funding from the state, is $500,000 from the Connecticut General Assembly to sustain and expand upon early childhood literacy initiatives through a Dolly Parton Imagination Library and other efforts. So we're very appreciative of that. Just to our expert panelists, thank you for your insight. Thank you for being here about honest and candid leadership that the community needs to hear. We appreciate those voices. Community-led voices are important to us at United Way. And just really deeply grateful to the other sponsors, the supporters here tonight. Your investment in literacy really is an investment in equity, and it's an opportunity for the future of our children. So thank you. So on behalf of United Way, I just want to thank you all for being here for our critical dialogue. And so our call to action is not dissimilar from what's already been mentioned. If you're a parent or caregiver, ask questions about how reading is being taught and demand evidence-based practices in your schools. You're an educator, you're an administrator, commit to training, collaboration, and the hard work of shifting systems, because it's going to require systems change to make things different in our communities. And for our community leaders and our policymakers, support policies. Support these types of policies, funding that make early literacy a true priority, and hold their legislators accountable for that as well. So again, thank you to everyone for being here tonight, and we look forward to standing with you in this fight for childhood literacy. Have a nice day.
So friends, I have one other ask. Stay in the audience. I'm going to have the panelists come in the front. We're going to take a picture of all you all together with the panelists. Okay, sound good? You're all camera ready, I promise. So if the panelists can make their way down and just stand in the front, and we'll stand up here and take a picture of everybody in the room, just so everybody. Yes, everybody stand up, wherever you are. I'm going to have the panelists go down. You're going down for a picture. No, that's okay. They're busy making plans about his literacy. The work never ends. Yep. Find your way to a lovely place. Good. If you can't see me, it means I can't see you. Good. And on the count of three, you're gonna say go literacy. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're good. Last picture, last picture. Last picture, sorry. One more picture, one more picture. Yeah, everybody, thank you. Thank you. If you're here, come up. Dr. Allen wants to talk to you. If you work for Brentwood Public Schools.
I forgot it was on the table.